Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our WWE episode for the week. First off, let's start off with the so-so segments. The stuff that wasn't bad, wasn't good, it was just there. First up, we have Goldust and Stardust versus Mark Henry and The Big Show. Eventful because Henry turns on Show. Thing of it is that both Mark Henry and The Big Show have flip-flop back and forth between face and heel so much that who cares when either one of them turns. It was predictable, it was silly, I just didn't care about it, to be honest with you. Next up we have AJ Lee versus Alicia Fox. We see at the end Paige attacks Alicia. They've taken three of the better divas and put them in a silly who's the craziest storyline, and to me it's a waste of three good talents. I mean, I don't know, maybe I should be thankful that we actually see good divas matches, but I'd prefer if they had a better story to go with it. Next up we have Kane versus Dolph Ziggler, made because Ziggler might potentially be joining John Cena. We'll talk about that later. Cena tried to recruit him, or seemed to have recruited him for a Survivor Series team. Matches at the end, Cena and Rollins come out, which leads right into Cena versus Rollins. Rollins gets disqualified when Kane and others attack on his behalf, which brings out the entire roster. This is basically the close of the show. The entire roster is fighting each other. So seems to be maybe battle lines are being drawn between the Authority and the rest of the roster. I don't know. It didn't make sense. People that weren't involved in the Authority storyline were out there. People that were involved in the Authority storyline. But who knows? It just seems silly and contrived in a weird way. It makes sense when they do this ending at Royal Rumble season when everybody's out there in the ring, because it's an every man for themselves kind of thing. This really didn't do it for me, in my opinion. Now let's move on to the bad portions of the night, the stuff I didn't like. We have another satellite interview with Roman Reigns. Again, he came off as robotic. He's a guy I think could do a lot in wrestling. I don't know that these interviews, updates on his health, are doing any justice to him or helping his career forward. I don't know if maybe it's what he's being scripted to say, or I don't know what or why, but he's not coming off well on these. They should maybe think about dialing him back a bit. Could be the fact that he doesn't have that much emotion going into it, but who knows. Next up, and I hate to say it because it was for a great cause, but Hulk Hogan came out there doing the whole breast cancer thing, bringing the ladies in. I liked the part with the ladies coming in with Hogan. That was cool. The breast cancer survivors. But to me, it was just a boring segment. Too much of Hogan hyping up John Cena. Cena doesn't need the Hogan rub. I mean, out of anybody on the roster, Cena's probably the least needing of it. But he tries, and I guess he tries to turn Hulkamaniacs into part of the C Nation, but who knows. And last but not least, in the bad portion, we have Nikki Bella versus Naomi. Brie Bella is forced to interfere on Nikki's behalf. Again, forwarding another stupid storyline with the Divas. The personal assistant storyline. Maybe it's the characters is one of the reasons why I don't care, but it's just silly and stupid. I don't know. Coming off of that, we're going to go right into our question of the week. The question of the week last week was, out of the three faces of Foley, which one is your favorite? We got some answers here from our friends before we get into mine. First is up for my cousin John. Last week's show was perfect for Hell in a Cell, good promos all around, minus the sister feud. Mick Foley's appearance was like The Rock's appearance for me. Just when the show started lagging my interest, Foley sucked me back in. Foley is the god of oh my god of wrestling. Every time I watch him, even as Dude Love, you knew something was going to shock you. His passion, his speeches, his insane love of punishment, all for us the fans. He gave us what our generation cried for, completely disregard of his body, someone who could and who would put it on the line for us. I love the utterly disturbing Mankind, the insanity of Cactus Jack, and the peace, love, and harmony of the Dude. You're right, everything he does is golden. I guess he really just loves them all. Which is cool, because I do too. Next is from our good friend Steve Tadnani. My favorite of the three would be Cactus Jack. Most definitely a hardcore icon if there ever was one. The feuds he had with such opponents as Big Van Vader, Sting, Sabu, Terry Funk, and Triple H are all legendary. I also love Cactus Jack's promo. All around a true legend, that Cactus Jack. Bang bang! Had to put it in for dramatic measure, do it the right way, do Cactus justice. Next is from our friend Dizzlepup. Hey George, my favorite was Mankind, but it was his later work in the role that I liked the most, when he started to work more on his comedy work because his body was falling to bits. I think he came into his own. His combo with Rock was hilarious, and a lot of his humor was so clever. On top of all this, I think it threw back in the face a lot of mixed detractors who would say dumb stuff about him just being an extreme guy and nothing else. Excellent reasoning, excellent choicing there of why. Makes a lot of sense. Next is up from our friend Benjamin Heat 19. Hey Heel Heat, I think this is the most difficult question you've ever asked. I was never a big fan of Dude Love, but he always made me laugh when he danced. When Foley wrestled under his own name post-retirement, I always felt a great sense of fandom and almost pride that I had been there to watch some of his career. And I think it comes down to Mankind and Cactus Jack. I love face Mankind. Not many people recognize it, but at one point in the months between SummerSlam 99 and Royal Rumble 99, Mankind was the biggest face in the WWE because The Rock was a heel and Austin was in a crap feud with The Undertaker that no one really remembers. Mankind was the perfect underdog character. I love Cactus because he was a character that should be feared. Foley had a real intensity in the ring as Cactus that wasn't prominent in the other characters. I understand why Mankind was made champion, but I would love to have seen Cactus win it at No Way Out 2000 and drop it back to Triple H at Mania and retire rather than the unplanned BS we got instead. It's too close to call, but it's between Cactus and Mankind. Fair enough. Next up's our friend Yellow Lion 3250. Well, my favorite was Cactus Jack because even though I'm 34, that's the character I grew up on. He was hardcore in WCW, I'm guessing that's what he means here, before hardcore was a household name. Mankind is very close second. Who would have thought that someone giving The Undertaker a run for his money and playing mind games with him? Totally awesome the days when wrestling was wrestling. Last but not least, our friend Joseph Hatcher. In my opinion, Mankind was my favorite of the three faces of Foley simply because I like hardcore crazy wrestlers. Seems to be a consensus that Dude Love's not even in the running. Little bit of a, looks like a 50-50 between Mankind and Cactus Jack. And I'm going to explain mine. Mine is Cactus Jack. Cactus Jack is the first one I see. Cactus Jack, to me, always holds a special place out of the Foley characters. Mankind's the one that had the most success winning the championship, the Rock and Sock connection. Took it the heights of popularity of Mick Foley to places that no one, even the most ardent Foley fans, would have expected. To me, though, Cactus Jack was the guy. At a time when Cactus came out, the first time I seen Cactus was about 1991. I believe it was in World Class or USWA. It was on the ESPN. ESPN had their own wrestling show. First it was AWA, then they showed World Class, and then USWA bought World Class and kind of shared the territories. So I don't really remember if it was USWA or World Class Championship Wrestling. But it's the first time I seen him was part of Skandar Akbar's crew. immediately I was drawn to him. This had to be right around 1990, 91. At the time, I was a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid. So I was starting to grow away from the kid that grew up loving the cartoonish wrestlers, the George the Animal Steels, the silly goofiness that was wrestling in the 1980s. And here comes this guy right as I'm getting into my rebellious teenage years, comes this rebellious wrestler that's doing things that no other wrestler ever did. At that time, it didn't seem to matter to him whether he won or lost as long as he inflicted pain. And to me, there was something so intriguing about that character that kept me watching wrestling, that kept me as a fan. There were a lot of times where I'd watch WCW, or even early in his WWE run, where Cactus Jack was the only reason I'd watch a show, in Mankind and WWE, obviously. But I'd sit through the crap that WCW would put on, the Oz, the Vinny Vegases, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pick on Kevin Nash, Raven as Scotty Flamingo, the silly goofiness, the Stars and Stripes tag team, and the overall just silly 80s feel that they had, just so I could see a 2-minute Cactus Jack match, because it was wild and insane and totally different than anything else. And to me, I agree, I forget who said it there, but he ramped up the intensity when he was Cactus Jack. I think the best way to put it was the classic promo before his match with Triple H, where he has all three characters basically sitting with each other, starting off with a Dude Love, who says he's not the right guy, brings out Mankind. Mankind talks about how he wishes he could do horrible things to Triple H, but he knows someone that could take it even further, and thus we see the WWE debut of Cactus Jack. I agree, I wish Cactus Jack character would have won a world title. Hey, it's apples and oranges at this point. Foley did win 3 championships as a Mankind character. Mick Foley, to me, I said it before, I'll say it again, 100% my favorite wrestler that's ever done it. To me, like I said, there was a lot of down times where a young George could have easily stopped watching wrestling because how crappy the product was. But this guy named Cactus Jack kept me coming back just to see what he would do, even when he was in crappy storylines. But to me, it's Cactus. I love him to death, no matter what he does. Mick Foley, hands off. I mean, to me, it's 100% true. Foley is God. And I don't think the man can do anything wrong. But anyway, coming off of that, we're going to go into our question of the week for next week. Out of the 3 biggest factions of all time, which one was your favorite? Was it the 4 Horsemen, D-Generation X, or the NWO? Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Facebook. Hit us up on Twitter. Put it down where? Down there in the comments. Right down there below me somewhere. And we'll talk about that next week. Next up, we're going to go right into the good portion of this show, the stuff I actually liked. The opening segment, I could care less about. Stephanie, Triple H, Kane, Orton, and Rollins all come out. The only thing I really enjoyed about it, RKO out of nowhere. Thought it was awesome. I like that they're going with this. I kind of like Randy Orton as a loose cannon, kind of almost Stone Cold character. I think he plays it well. I think we need more of a badass Randy Orton. Next up, we have this John Cena being recruited by Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, which leads us into the Survivor Series match, which obviously, since Cena's the #1 contender and he's going to be a traditional Survivor Series match, means no Brock Lesnar for two pay-per-views in a row, no world champion. I'm okay with that. I love the traditional Survivor Series matches. I like that they tried to pitch Cena to join the Authority kind of as a replacement for Randy Orton. I like that his character as John Cena turned him down. I think it'll lead to an interesting match at Survivor Series. Next up, we have the Usos versus The Miz and Damien Mizdow. All I have to say about this is Damien Mizdow. The guy is phenomenal. It's amazing how interesting this is, and amazing how fun his character is. It's something that shouldn't be this fun, it shouldn't be this interesting, it should be crap, but he's turning it into comedy gold to me. Usos pick up the win, which is irrelevant, because Damien Mizdow was the highlight of it. Next up, we have Bo Dallas laying an open challenge. Big fan of Bo Dallas. Don't know really what they're doing with his career right now, what they're trying to accomplish with him. But it's answered by Ryback, who comes out to a face reaction. Last we seen him and Curtis Axel were a heel team. Ryback runs through Bo Dallas. Maybe they could get Ryback back on track to where he was back just 2 years ago when he was challenging CM Punk for the world title and he was very hot and they managed to drop the ball with him. Hopefully they could get him back there where the fans actually give a crap, because Ryback, I think, is a very interesting character. I know the comparisons to Goldberg are there just because he's big and muscular and runs through people, but I think he's a lot better in the ring than Goldberg ever was. I think he's a good enough wrestler. I think the intensity's there. I think, honestly, he can be an improved version of Goldberg. He could be this generation's Goldberg, but better, if that makes sense. Last but not least, we have the planned match with Cesaro versus Dean Ambrose, where Dean Ambrose just destroys Cesaro with the microphone and ends up having a promo with Bray Wyatt, hence continuing their feud that obviously started at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view when Bray Wyatt cost Ambrose his match. Thought it was good. I think that the promos going forward with Wyatt and Ambrose are going to be amazing. Ambrose ramping up the violence and intensity, I think, is going to be cool too. I think it'll mesh and end up giving us something really good to look forward to. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go right into our ratings for the week. Here at the show, we have a 1 to 5 scale. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. 1's a Great Khali, 2's a Heath Slater, 3's a Damian Sandow, 4's a Cesaro, 5's a Daniel Bryan. I'm giving this show a 2, a Heath Slater. There were a few things I really liked: the Ryback reintroduction, Damien Mizdow, the Wyatt Ambrose thing. Not so much a fan of Cesaro getting destroyed because I like him as a character. However, I like where it's going story-wise. A lot of things I found, there was more of the show that I found that I didn't care either way. That it didn't make me hate, didn't make me like. It was just a very I don't care kind of Monday Night Raw. And they've been putting on a lot of these lately where it's just a ho-hum effort. The writing team doesn't seem to give a shit. The wrestlers don't seem to give a shit. So why should I give a shit? Kind of my opinion on it. But basically, that's what I have to say about this episode. My name is George Coles. This has been another episode of Heel Heat.